Welcome back, everybody. This is the Refresh Point. My name is Ben, and as always, I'm joined by my co-host, Steve. How's it going?
You know what? Had a really good week. Looking forward to a really good weekend.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Hell yeah. Because tomorrow, at the time of recording, we'll be going to Rosemont. We're going to Chicago. We're going to the Windy City, but before that, let's take a look at the Toronto Regional as well as the Bone-In meta that we'll be diving into. Pre-tournament rituals, soccer scams, the Bone Daddy, and more after you shuffle your decks, tap or cut. And let's get right into the Refresh Point with some breaking news. And now, let's dive into the Spike Corner.
Yeah, that's about it for the news. Not a lot of news.
No news. No news.
Yeah.
There is no news.
We're in peak tournament cycle, which means...
So all the news is right here in the Spike Corner.
That's right.
Toronto happened. The episode released a few days ago. Steve guessed Don Machi as the dark horse, and it turns out it was the redhead Ichika that would be our big dark horse winner, I think.
Yeah,
of the tournament.
I
guess Ichika and Atla.
I would argue that Avatar
is
the
the
Last
big
Airbender.
winner. Yeah,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, if we look at 140 players, which is pretty big, I think, for the region. I don't have the numbers from last year on hand, but that sounds like a crap load of players. So really nice to see good turnout. This top 8 looks like a list of highly usual suspects, we'll say. We've got 2 SAO and 2 Hololive and 2 Slime and 1 Quint and then 1 Avatar.
You know, last time, and just to clarify, last time in Springfest there were 42 teams.
So that's like 120
that's
players.
about 120 players, and fall tends to pull, I guess, I feel like it would tend to pull a little more people for
Hard to say.
Squall.
Hard to say.
It's easier because if you don't have a team you can play,
yeah,
right? You know.
But on the one hand, you know, it's like team play is tended viewed through a more casual lens. I don't know. I will say,
but it is more people.
140 players
cool.
is a nice size Weiss tournament. Glad to see it. Happy to see it. Now, let's talk about results a little bit. Our big winner is a deck we know, a deck we love, a deck that we see all the time here in DFW, which is the 8-Pants Slime deck.
Yay!
So chalk up a win for the Slime deck. This is the standard build, so we're talking about no finishing combo. We have the level 1 and level 2 advantage engines, one for the old engine, the old level 1 combo with Shizu, and the new level 2 combo featuring Nguyen.
Yes, and I guess the things that are quote-unquote of note are like, you know, because all the slime lists play just like slightly different quantities of everything.
Yeah.
And this is no different. So this specific list has the set 1 Climax Swapper instead of the set 3-1 that is red and checks top. This one is on attack, check top 2, pick a trigger. So this one's like better quote unquote to swing with,
sure,
for clean triggers, but it also adds to your blue count, however much that you think that matters to you. It's running 1 of the Dragonoid Bonder, which goes to stock whenever you play a Dragonoid, and gives the Dragonoid 1500 power. So if you're missing a Shuna, or even if you do have the Shuna, this is a pretty good way to just kind of be like, all right, now Milim definitely is getting over whatever you have.
Yeah, as another trigger reliability mechanic on play, you get to check two and reorder.
As long as one of those is a character, you get the burn 1 off Dragonoid. Yay!
Right. Yeah. So we've got a couple of a couple nice pieces here for increased Dragonoid reliability. Other than that, a lot of this looks very familiar. Not that many of the Nguyen Bonder, which I thought was interesting. I've seen some decks rely on that as a 4 of, and I've seen some decks deprioritize it. So.
Yeah, I think it's the mindset of like, are we going to super lean into the Shizu combo? And then like, how much do we care about having other tech slots?
Right.
And so this deck has a lot of our usual tech, plus the Dragonoid Bonder, the Prankster Amorous, Grappling Hook Effect, Veldora, discard Saxel Salvage, Milim for the deck speed and the stock swap, one of the TD Rimuru, one of the Blue Soe that I'm really making editing this really highly annoying for me. Yeah. But the interesting thing is, because they've kind of done all of this tech and also the Dragonoid, their 3 count looks a little funky. They have one of the Bird Force Shion, 2 Dragonoids, even with the Bonder, and only 3 Benimarus.
Yeah, I think it's fine. Like, it seems as though the plan for the build is to do double Benimaru and Dragonoid Milim.
Or it even could be just double Dragonoid Benimaru at this point.
Yeah. Like, it just depends on how much real you need, I guess.
Yeah.
But I think it's fine. This deck does have a ton of 1-ofs. And for a deck that doesn't have really what I would consider to be superior selection, I find that interesting. It means that you're gonna have a premium on the Shizu combo going off and picking up things that you need to have happen during the game.
I mean, I will say they do have 4 of the Shuna Riki.
Yeah.
Which has been run as either a 3 or 4 of, so like, you can say that they expect to just have more cards in hand, which they can kind of discard away with Soe or Veldora to kind of make the Shizu more reliable. But
yeah, they have a number of like 1-off hand fixers or 1-off deck speed fixers, and then we got some level 2 counters, and I mean, there's a lot of 1-ofs. No, I have no problem with that. I think that Weiss is a game that can support that. It's just that, generally speaking, I tend to prefer at least having one selectivity piece at 4 at 0, so I can try and guarantee that my level 1 combo is going to be smooth. The Slime doesn't really have a good piece that facilitates that, mostly because of color restrictions and because their 2 best zeros, one is just a beater that denies any on reverse mechanic, which is super annoying, and the other one is like Aqua at Home. So those are fine, and you really don't have another red 0 you could run in that Shuna spot that would.
You can run the Chaser.
Yeah, that's sort of even worse, because then now you have 2 beaters that do nothing. And it's better
because you would run. So we've discussed this before, but the other red yellow option is running the Chaser from set 2 and the set 1 yellow Riki.
Yeah.
Because that'll just search you a 1 or lower, so that just gets you Shizu gets you something, etc., etc.
There's a lot
of the mass card quantity that Shuna might give you.
Yeah, I like it better in every context except for the fact that 0 Kodoro or Hakuro. Yeah, he denies a lot of mechanics in the game right now. There are a lot of 0s that are really relying on death or on reverse. I mean, you still get the on reverse, but the on waiting room effects are denied.
You might not, like, for example, it denies Lammy because on reverse you proc first, and then she can't go to memory. Yeah, and she can't go to memory.
Yeah. So denying those sort of mechanics is really powerful, especially in a meta like the one we're in now, where a lot of decks are trying to derive massive amounts of advantage at 0. Even against itself, it denies.
You get to deny Shuna.
You get to deny Shuna. So
and then Shuna can give the Hakuro the power to beat over any zero on God's green earth. So
yeah, I think it's good in most matchups. I think the only matchup where it doesn't matter is probably Alice. They don't really have any zeros that they even care about.
Not particularly, unless you're fighting Alice Kirito.
Yeah, they can deny the Yu-Gi-Oh.
You can deny the Yu-Gi-Oh. I guess that does feel good since you're playing like a climaxless finisher for the most part. And kind of what happens is if you get the climax, you get it. And if you don't, I guess we don't have the +1 soul, but sometimes that matters.
Yeah,
So,
I think that I think Yu-Gi-Oh, if you want Yu-Gi-Oh in memory, you can get it. It's just annoying to have it denied. Whereas stuff like Aqua or Lammy,
Yeah,
or
if you miss the timing,
the timing of those is more important. Where
you miss the timing. Lammy, I think, is less important. I think that's another card where it's like if they want it, they can get it. It'll just happen on their turn, and it'll happen later. But like
happening on their turn is a big deal though, because it forces you to free a lane.
Yeah.
And get and open yourself up to damage. So
maybe that's what they want, though. You know?
Yeah,
it depends. It always depends.
Yeah, of course. You prefer to have the choice.
True.
But yeah, I don't like mechanics like that proccing during my turn unless I have a desperate need where it's like I need to mill 4 cards and I need it now.
Last thing on this list that I'll touch on is that there's only 2 Hexproof Shunas, and while that's kind of standard, I'm personally running 3, and here's my argument for 3, and here's other people's arguments for running 3. We have Overlord. Overlord says kill, whatever it sends the events away, and we'll talk about it again later. That's our deck of the week. When we talk about it again later, it can only send the Shuna to the waiting room whenever that kind of whole thing procs, and then you kind of want to have a second one on hand because Overlord also has a tap counter. Also, it's just nice to have 3 because then like you feel worse about it going to clock, you feel worse about triggering it, and it is a pretty key piece of like keeping your board together. And so while Overlord didn't exist, 2 feels pretty optimal. While Overlord does exist, having 3 accessible feels pretty good, I think.
I've played this deck a little bit, and what I will say is the fewer things that you need to pick up with Shizu, the better the deck feels. Because, again, it doesn't feel like you can select a lot before 2. At 2, you're going to get to select whatever finisher you think is going to win the game. But prior to that, the 0 game doesn't feel like it facilitates a whole lot of selection. So I tend to prefer the key pieces being in higher quantities so I can raw draw them.
Yeah.
That being said, I didn't win this tournament, so I definitely, it's everybody's gonna have a different take on it. But congrats, congrats to the winner. It's a very good deck, executed very well.
Congrats to Steve, not this Steve, but Steve from Canada, who also has his own YouTube channel where he won with an Avatar bar standby list.
Yeah, so let's talk about this list real quick because it's highly non-standard. I don't think this is getting built in this way very often, but it makes a lot of sense. So we can go over it quickly. This is a take on the Silly Sokka Tricks deck. So we have a lot of those pieces built into it. We've got the level 2 that sacrifices your characters to get cards, and we've got the Azula finisher that sacrifices your characters to deal damage. So we have some of the Sokka tricks that we can execute late game for many packets of damage, which is in fact how you make people die. And to fill out the rest of the deck, we have we made space for the Avatar state, so we have lots of high value triggers, so we can get bars and standbys off of that. We've got the Toph combo, which is probably the best advantage engine in Avatar in terms of producing cards that you want into your hand and providing a modest amount of deck speed. And then the big thing that's brought in here is we're running enough of every color, and he's got a okay color balance, not great, not bad. Basically 2 colors that are dominating, green and red, and then 2 other colors that are supporting, blue and yellow. But we're running the blue 0 that mills 3, and if you get, if it hits all 3, you draw.
Yep.
I think with the color combinations that he has, it is probably not super likely to draw as much as it would be in a more balanced color configuration. But this card kind of demands to be run, because it's also a level swap, which can be very useful at times. It's also just like a premier amount of deck speed for a 0, where you get to mill 3, and no matter what, that happens. And then
and it's
sometimes you'll just
than,
draw a card for free.
Yeah, it's better than because they print mill 3 on a 0 a few different times, right? It'll be paired with any number of mechanics, but this one is mill 3 and maybe pick one from the 3. So it's nice in that way. Also, quick note, congrats to Kevin Fongsa for winning Toronto. We just didn't have the name on hand. Congrats on that. And back to the avatar list. He did have gameplay of it uploaded to his channel beforehand. And he also has an overview video on his own channel. So we're not gonna super deep dive into his list because he'll explain it better than we ever could.
Yeah, and we'll obviously provide links to that from our YouTube to
check it out,
to his content.
If you just look at his deck log, he has his YouTube channel listed as the deck name, so easy enough.
But but yeah, I think that this build is pretty reasonable. It maximizes all of the good stuff that comes from Avatar. So we're maximizing the Azula damage engine in the late game. We're maximizing the Toph combo. We're maximizing the Sokka and Avatar state. So we're just taking and of course the blue 0. We're taking all of the best pieces from the set and we're jamming them all into one deck. And our goal is make Azula kill you with 9+ packets. Now, this is an ambitious deck that definitely would require a lot of practice to be played very well. And so, congrats.
Yeah, and he got it.
Yeah, congrats on a very good finish with a deck that probably very few people would see coming. That being said, there are some things that are difficult about this deck to pilot, and probably the most difficult one is Azula needs to reverse in the late game to get her combo off. And if you sense that is possible, then you can take steps to avoid it. The other issue is that some characters may, with the introduction of Overlord to the format, that might make things even more complicated for a deck like this, because you will know for sure that one lane is unreversible, and in other lanes it may become problematic if they get a whole bunch of the 3-2 on board.
You get to get rid of their kind of standby advantage and brainstormers pretty easily.
Yeah, killing Ty Lee is
annoying.
Yes.
Killing the Azula 2/2 if they get it out is annoying. Killing the brainstormer, it's pretty annoying.
Yeah.
1 of 3. Yeah.
Yeah, it's an awkward setup in that way, but I still think it's pilotable in that even after Overlord's out. It's just that a deck like this requires quite a bit of delicate play. So by all means, if you like Avatar, this is a great place to start from. If you're looking for something tournament worthy, this will not be the last Avatar deck we see in top 8 this fall, I believe.
I don't think so either.
I think
somebody will master the elements at some point.
That deck feels unreasonable at times, for sure. So
I think somebody can make it happen.
Well,
I'm not sure.
I meant unreasonably good. Yeah, there's definitely times where I've played it and I've been like, man, this deck is crazy strong. The finisher is unbelievable.
Yeah. I think the last super interesting thing of note that I wanted to comment on is his usage of the Suki Kyoshi Warrior, which on play and on death lets you discard to salvage from clock and reclock, which offers a very interesting amount of like clock manipulation in a sense.
Yeah, part of what I like about it is you get access to a pretty strong hand outlet at a point in the game where, or you know, in the middle of the game, you can get a hand outlet that you wouldn't normally have, and the deck's kind of weak on hand outlets without it. So I like it for that. The
funniest thing you can do with it, right, is you get to clock the avatars, the learning avatar state.
Yeah.
You get to get the stock off of it, and then you get to just grab it back.
Yeah, the timing works when she goes to the waiting room where you can rediscover it, and so you can spam avatar states for massive amounts of resources, which, I mean, that's not nothing. Her other effect, her unreverse sending cost zeros to clock, not.
It exists.
Yeah, it's actually super good against level zeros and really not great against most everything else.
It is a 1/5, so like it'll probably happen.
It can harass level
yeah.
zeros for sure.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure how many level 1 games would be strongly affected by that, but it is a very unique and interesting card, and I had not thought about this way to use it. So
I mean, it pisses off Shizu.
Yeah, it's a very clever use. Yeah, that's true.
Pisses off both the Shizu and the human Murin, because you can't clock Encore either. Yeah.
Correct. So, I mean, that might be some. It's definitely got some tech in the meta, and it's a very creative way to get lots of value from Avatar State without having to hold lots of Avatar States. So, very cool adaptation. And congrats once again.
Yeah.
So,
looking at everything else
looks pretty bog standard.
Pretty standard.
Yeah. This is we have another slime deck, very similar to the first one. We have 2 Alice Silica decks, which we don't have deck lists for, but I can guarantee I could name 45 of the 50 cards.
Yeah.
And we've got 2 Azkigura decks, and if I know Azkigura like I know Azkigura, I could probably name 45 of those 50 cards too. So,
and 8 choice.
Yeah,
Ichika.
We have 8 choice Ichika. This is kind of the standard build for 8 choice Ichika, where we have triple climax combo, only one of the finishing combo, which props to the people who can do this. This would be so nerve-wracking for me, but
I mean, you have a guy that just gets a choice.
Yeah, you better know where it is. That's all I'm saying.
There's 3 of them. It's an early play, you know, it sets up both the early play combo and the finishing combo.
Just don't trigger it, Forehead. Anyway, just don't penalty it, Forehead.
Yeah. We'll just draw into it.
Yeah, we'll just have it. Well, in any case, braver men than me playing the Ichika deck. Ichika is very nice in the meta. The event is extremely powerful. 2 cigarettes event that also has the side benefit of crapping all over some decks. In particular, Alice and Overlord's not going to enjoy it either. It means they're going to have to clutch that some of their back row characters a little tightly early in the game, especially. So you'll have to be more cautious when playing around this event.
It's 2 cigarettes.
Yeah.
4 in Ichika, and if they salvage a level 3 character, they get to bounce somebody.
Yeah, so bounce anybody is very annoying for early plays.
It's a little rough.
Like Alice. Very annoying for Shizu.
It's a 1-0 event.
Yeah, very annoying for Shizu, or not for Shizu, for slime decks on the after the Murin turn, because they can bounce your Hexproof, which also costs you 2k power in every lane.
Yeah. Unless you play double Shuna.
Right.
If you just get the sauce, you can just make the whole board hexproof.
Yeah, and I mean, that's not nothing.
Yeah.
The rest of the deck, pretty high reliability finisher. that is an on cancel, allows you to shuffle back a certain amount of cards and then deal a certain amount of damage. Your choice based on the number of other characters. Or up to the number of other characters you have. So you can kind of control how much you need to win. Shuffling back a whole bunch of cards into your opponent's deck is a fast way to kill them in certain deck states. So while it doesn't have great reach, and if your opponent just eats all 3 and they're not dead, you kind of don't have any juice. But if they're at 3-0, it's pretty awkward to deal with this combo.
It's pretty lethal.
Yeah, you're probably in danger.
Yeah, like 2-4 and above. Really, you're pretty risky. I feel like.
Yeah, it depends on how much you can eat, honestly, because if you eat 2 of them and then block once, you're kind of good to go.
Or block twice. Right?
Yeah. So if you block down in 1 lane, you're kind of safe. If you're at 2. So it doesn't take a lot of blocks, but you may not get a lot of blocks. So that's the trick. The rest of it, pretty standard build for this sort of deck. So that's the Quint deck that is likely to do the best in the current meta because it has a lot of answers. So
it won't get nuked by Overlord to hell.
It's gonna be more awkward for them to deal with Overlord.
Yeah.
So we'll see how that goes after this week, where we will be entering into our first bone-in meta.
Yeah. Sorry. It really took you effort to say that, huh? You had to stop for a sec. You're like,
it's just like
I'm saying this anyway.
I just can't think of it in any other context but a wing context.
Yeah.
So I think
we had the boneless meta, and now here's the bone-in meta.
And speaking of bone-in meta,
here's Heinz.
It's time for our deck of the week. And we talked about this early on in the podcast because it was dominating in Japan, but we figured that people might need a little refresher on the power of Ainz.
The last time we talked about this was in episode 4, which, wow, we've been here for 12 more episodes after that one.
It turns out we're still not bored of doing this.
Thanks for listening.
Thank you to everyone who is absorbing the content.
Yeah. Appreciate it.
All right, so...
But yeah, here's Ainz.
Yeah, let's talk about Ainz.
What does it do again?
Yeah, so, this deck is going to be the type of deck that is similar to Alice in the sense that the meta has to warp around it to adjust to it. And there are certain strategies that are going to become invalid because of the existence of this deck. So the main strategies that are going to become invalid are minus soul strategies, or any sort of choke strategy at level 2.
Or any sort of just board presence strategy at level 2, realistically.
Right. So, Sora deck and things like that can't really exist in the same meta as this deck.
Yeah.
So, why is that? Well, let's talk about it. So, the main reason that this deck is going to see play is because of the interaction of the early play Ainz combo. So, there's a 1/1 that will allow you to play a... There's a 1/1 event that you can play for free. You can have up to 5 copies in the deck.
It's Pion Kichi, by the way.
Yeah.
It's just Pion Kichi.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, it's just salvaging for the most part. The other thing is the interaction between the 0 Ainz and the 3 Ainz.
And the 1/1, really.
Right. So the 0 lets you pay 1, discard 1, kill it, and if you're level 2, to play the Ainz 3/2 from your hand as a act.
Also, for fun, you can clock yourself at the beginning of the opponent's attack step to bounce that 0 and another card to your hand. So it kind of serves like both an early game advantage and also your early play mechanic.
Yeah,
so.
It's like Bell with an even better kicker. So, so we get that, and the 3/2 has smorgasbord of abilities.
All right, let's just break it down nice and easy.
Yeah.
There's 3 things that it can do. In fact, the climax combo is the only text on the card.
Right.
It's a 9500 green 3/2 Ainz. what it does is one of three things. When you play the bar, you can choose to take all of the 1/1 events in your waiting room and mark it underneath. Take the events that are marked underneath and send them to your memory, and then choose X characters on your opponent's board and kill them. This is all at one timing, and so that's why you can, for example, only pick Shuna, and like it doesn't cascade for a slime board.
Right. The third effect is burn 1.
Burn 1. All of the effects are preceded by heal 1.
Right.
So you always get the heal, and then you have one of the three effects. Effectively, what this means, last thing, the 1/1 gives a 3/2 of your choice, hexproof on the opponent's turn, and cannot be reversed, and the opponent cannot be reversed. So bombs don't work, and you can't downgrade it. You can only anti-early counter it, and if they're expecting it, they'll just side into you 3 times, and then they'll have something that's invincible. And then once the events are in the memory, those events have an effect as well that stacks. At the encore step, they can choose to pay 1, discard any card for as many events as are in memory to burn 1.
Yeah.
So what this means is, it's the cascade of burn 1s. It's happening. Here it is. And every time they combo, they're gonna heal off 1, 2. If they try feeling it, here's 3 off the clock on bar, you know? But it's a multi-step deck. And so it's very prone to damage rush. You know.
Yeah, there's a couple ways things can go wrong. And we'll talk about that here in a second. But the other parts of this deck that are enabling it are the other combo is on door. So we have a 1/0 combo for Shaltir. It's effectively 8,000 power. And when it reverses, you salvage, and then you time machine. You send it to memory.
Or if the board is empty.
Yeah, it doesn't have to reverse.
Yeah.
It can the slot can be empty as well.
Yeah. So it's either reverse or empty. The only denial is punching over it.
Right. So, and then it goes to memory, and then at the start of your next turn, it'll return to the board. So that's its main selectivity and plus engine. It has another one. It has another 1/0 Shaltir that can take a Vampire Bride from your waiting room and put it into the clock and allow you to raw draw 1 from the top. The value of this card cannot be understated.
It was banned for a reason.
Yes.
JP.
Yes. Because this will let you force cards into your clock so you can level up. Force cards into your clock so you can get free advantage and then heal the damage with Eins. Clock control is a big part of what makes this deck good, because it is vulnerable to certain timing problems. So for example, if you are hitting 2 right as your deck is refreshing, it is real bad, because all of the events will be going back into the deck. They will not be in the waiting room, so you cannot marker them. Because you cannot marker them, you cannot send them to memory on the follow-up combo turn. So you need 2 combos in order to get the events transition from the waiting room into the memory, and it's a pain anytime you can't do it. So every time you have to select burn 1 instead of either of the other effects, it is extremely bad.
Early on.
Yes.
And the 1/1, as we mentioned, does make the event free to play. So if you can just grip them and make sure they're in the waiting room at the right timing, that's like technically also a play. But, you know, we need them all to be in the waiting room.
Or as many as possible.
Many as possible. We
Right.
want all the burn 1s possible.
Right. So, what this means is that in the late game, if you are close to death, you are dead. It is very unlikely that you will live, especially if they have 4 or 5 markers in memory. They're 4 or 5 burn 1s is liable to kill you in many deck states.
Yeah.
So, what can we do? Right? That's important. The first thing you can do is deny Shaltir. if you are playing Alice, if you are playing anything that is real thick at level 1 or unreversible at level 1, think Nino's 1/1 or something like this. If we can deny Shaltir in some way, then they hate that, because that is their biggest selection engine, and without it, they can have a bit of an awkward time getting all the pieces together for the follow-up level 2 turns. So anytime we can prevent them from executing their Shaltir, that's a win. Not all decks can do that. In fact, I would venture to say very few decks can do that. So what's our next choice?
Yeah, and just to mention, just gonna double check. Okay, yeah, and it's at the end of the card's attack. So if you have a bounce combo like Saikano, if you bounce back, they still get it.
Right. Yeah, bounce back doesn't work. Move gear does not work. So the only way to deny it is being thick or being unreversible. And so there are a couple decks that can do that. Most decks probably can't do that.
Bang Dream Choice.
Yes, Bang Dream Choice can be
pretty funny there.
Is very frustrating for them.
Yeah.
So there are some Bang Dream Choice and Alice are the two best ways to deny this combo. If we can't deny it, what can we do? Well, the next thing we can do is grip an anti-early counter to force them to respect you. So
3 sides is pretty good. Shout out to Chainfire, who's been commenting on our episodes fairly frequently. You didn't mention that you were like, yeah, 3 sides feels pretty good. And on the whole, if you have a board, I tend to agree with you.
Yeah, forcing them to respect you is a big part of keeping the game in range. If they know you don't have it, then they're gonna go hard. And if you take a bunch of damage at 2, I guarantee you're going to lose to this deck frequently. Because
but the best thing about it is if you can grab it by just raw drawing that shit, or if you have a check 3 Brainstormer, because then you can really make them like on the ropes about it, which is where we want them to be.
Yeah, the best thing you can do is show it, or the second best thing you can do is show it to them. Mm-hmm. The best thing you can do is sneak it in. But if you're playing Overlord, I highly recommend that you keep a tight visual on your opponent's waiting room to be looking for stuff like that. And realistically, you should expect cards like this, because every set has one available. It is good against a variety of strategies. There is no reason to not run it. And there are many decks that will punish you severely if you don't have any way to respond to them.
I think the biggest thing for the budding Overlord player at any regional, because this will come out too late for anybody at Chicago, but I would highly recommend familiarizing yourself with which decks have an level 1 anti-early punch that they will throw into you.
Yeah.
Spoiler alert, it's probably Kaguya and Konosuba. I don't think there's anything else that's like even close to relevance that has one at level 1, but most of them have one at level 2.
Yeah.
And if they're level 2 already, there's no excuse to not side 3 times if you don't know.
Yeah. So the best strategy, if you're playing Overlord, is to, if you hit 2 before your opponent, which is very common, you should front with your non-Ainz characters, because your non-Ainz characters are going to be the characters that deal less damage from side attacks in general. So you want to front with those characters so that you can get the maximum amount of damage in before they hit 2. And as soon as they hit 2, you should respect them if you want the game to stay in a positive strategy. Because what will make you lose incredibly quickly is dropping all the markers and Ainz if you get anti-early punched, like to the bottom of the deck or somewhere awful.
Yeah,
so
you have now lost an Ainz, lost your kind of easy timing to get all the events in. Now you're really just considering burning 1 forever, which sucks.
Yeah. So you need to respect them, and if you show them that you have the anti-early counter, you can make them respect you. And part of that is keeping their guy on the board, but the other part of it is for you, that should keep the game slow enough for you to compete. Because the other part of it that's kind of nice is you can front into this thing with anything and you won't lose it. So it's a lane that's unlosable in the mid game and that's kind of a nice thing to have when you're against it, because level 0s can front Ainz and stay on the board. Now granted, that opens up free side attacks for him on the follow-up turn, but it allows you to conserve the valuable characters in your hand, and it doesn't open up lanes, which I think is an important part of managing that sort of early game strategy. So you have to do, and then finally the last thing you can do to try and manage this is rush them. So they would like to take the game at a pace where they can set up, and if you don't let them, then they can be in kind of a frantic state. It doesn't necessarily mean they don't need very many pieces to make the Ainz part of the deck work. You need the 1/1, the 3/2, 0/0, and a bar. That's not a huge ask. You're probably running a whole bunch of all of those things except the 1/1. The 1/1 tends to be the piece that is the longest pole in the tent. That is the thing that they're going to run the fewest copies of. That is the thing they're going to want to sculpt and cast the least. So if you have any way to disrupt that off the board, it's very frustrating because they won't want to sculpt 2 of them. So there's a number of decks that can do that. For example, Slime can drag it to the front if they leave a lane open.
Oh, surprise! Your shelter went to memory.
Yeah.
Oh.
So they're gonna leave lanes open for you to drag to the front. So,
yeah.
But if you're playing Overlord, you should just reserve the 1/1 off the board. Like, don't cast it. Keep it in your hand. There's no reason to cast it
unless you desperately need to play the event.
Yes.
To like get cards.
If you're in a very bad hand state and you need free events, then maybe. But for the most part, they're gonna try and conserve that to play against that strategy. But if you see that 1/1 on the board and you can remove it through any means of your deck, search for that means, get it, remove it from the board, and force them to sculpt another one, because they're not good at sculpting a whole bunch of stuff. They want to sculpt just the amount of stuff that they need to run one set of level 1 combos and then immediately go into the rest of the deck. They don't want to drag the game out in the early stages. So if you rush them, make them defensive, then it's possible they won't be able to set up correctly, or if they can set up correctly, it's possible they won't have enough events, or if they do have enough events, it's possible that they may not have everything that they need to make it as optimal as it can be. The other thing is that if their finisher isn't super good until you're 3, they want the game to stay at 2 forever. So if you shove them to 3, it makes them very uncomfortable, because their finisher doesn't work super well unless you're at 3 already. So a lot of times, if you put the pendulum too far on their end, they can lose from that.
Yeah. And and another small thing again, we did mention there is a tap counter in Overlord.
Yes.
And it used to be a promo, but it was reprinted. So, yeah.
There's 0 chance that they're not running it. Play around it if you can. If you can't, then accept that that's going to be part of their strategies. And a lot of times they'll show it to you to try and intimidate you with it, or make you respect them. So,
I think it's a
pay 5.
No, it is a promo. It is another promo. I think it's a box topper.
Yeah,
so it's like easier to get than the other one, maybe.
It's a pay 5 counter.
Yeah, it is.
So, very similar to the strats that MTI would use to bully you with their tap counter. They will do the same things with theirs.
Yeah. And a quick touch up, because Overlord is legal. Albedo is also legal. And Albedo does have a deck.
Yeah.
And it's not one to ignore entirely either, though I'm not entirely sure what the full counterplay that your deck may have is to it yet. So, it's an 8 standby list. And the main pieces here are a 2/2, a 3/2, and a 3/0 or a 2/2 event. So here's the play. Here's our 2/2. It gives 1/5 to everybody in front, and it's a 4K. Now you're saying to yourself, man, this 2/2 sucks. No. What it does is whenever you play the climax, you can pay 1, discard, kill this, and then pick the 3/2 from the waiting room put it onto the stage that the 2/2 was on, and add the event into your hand.
Yeah.
Great. Now, what does the event in 3/2 do? The 3/2 says, on play, from hand or by the combo, heal. So, already have a heal. If they block down, this heal is available. Is it available at level 1? You do need to be level 2.
Yeah.
So, this is an early play heal that can happen normally, and then it has the following combo effect. Same combo as the 2/2. On attack, if you have 2 or more characters, wow, how hard can that be in standby? Burn 1, and then during the opponent's climax phase or during the card's battle, you can't receive auto effect damage until the end of your opponent's next turn, obviously. So this is actually really interesting to me that it also includes the climax phase. Because though I can't think of burns coming out in the climax phase off the top of my head, that are like super top of the meta, like
Yeah, I don't think.
But it can happen. Like it's just not like super common. The funny thing is, the only one I can think of is literally the upcoming review movie set one.
Yeah.
But yeah,
I can't think of one off the top of my head that's meta relevant.
Yeah.
Obviously.
Or just in general, really.
Yeah. Obviously,
But
canceling.
the important part is during battles.
Yeah.
If you don't side attack, no auto damage.
Right.
This forces Guras specifically into a side, but that also kind of doesn't matter to them in the sense of they get 2/1/1/1, which might just be, good enough to kill anyway, but it does prevent like the super reach.
Yeah.
In that scenario.
Yeah. Against normal decks,
yeah,
obviously
pretty killer. No auto damage is rough, buddy.
Yeah.
The event is a 2/2 counter event. You have to have the 3/2. If you are level 2, you can choose somebody on your board, and the character facing it gets -3 soul. And that character gets 1/5 power. So, gets around hexproof. Primarily.
Yes. It'll also it'll give the actual early play Albedo enough power to survive a lot of battles.
Yeah, in case you don't have like a spare 2/2 in the back, or
even if you do,
and even if you do,
we gotta beat Murin.
True.
And so
actually, that doesn't beat Nguyen.
It could under certain setups.
If you have like another power boost.
Yes.
Because it's 13/5 swinging it.
Right.
Yeah,
so you would need another power boost, but I feel like it can have one.
Yeah.
So.
You definitely probably would. The interesting thing is that at level 3, it kind of gets nerfed.
Yeah. You have to pay 3.
Because you have to pay 3 instead, and you don't get the power bump.
Right. So, it's -3 souls is basically for any normal deck is gonna delete all the damage from the lane.
Mm-hmm.
So the problem, or the less good thing about this, is that if you've already comboed off with the 2/2, it's highly likely that they are going to be siding probably anyway. And if they're siding, then you don't need to give minus souls.
Yeah.
But if they try to reach for it with autos, if you have the shutdown from this minus souls event, it's gonna feel devastating, because that's basically all the damage from a lane just gone. It's very awkward to deal with this type of character. The obvious problem here, of course, is that Ainz.
Ainz will nuke your board. Woo! The counter to it was already in the set.
Yeah, so Albedo is weak to Ainz.
Yeah. Surprise!
Yeah.
It's flavored. They built it into the set.
Yeah, they made it impossible for Albedo to defeat Ainz. So that's not super great, but there are a number of decks that will be frustrated by this sort of strategy. I'm just not 100% sure the meta is right for it yet. However, if they do a banlist pass like they did in Japan and bring a bunch of these decks down in power level, this is the type of deck that's near the meta, that's almost good enough, that
will rise
in the shadow of all that stuff.
And yeah, that's our deck plus half of the week. I don't actually specifically know like a full Albedo like deck list, but it does have the tools to facilitate it enough that it is an archetype. That's just kind of the main thing to think about.
Yeah, it's like, why would we want to play this? This is why we would want to play this.
And finally today, we're gonna talk about some voodoo, just a little bit.
Yeah.
Because everybody has it, you know, your habits. That thing you do that it's not based on anything, but it works out, right?
You just feel it in your jellies.
You feel it in your bones.
Yeah.
And so
So what?
Everybody has their own thing, and we're gonna chat about some of ours here real quick, because I guess we've talked about Torch enough that it's not that's its own voodoo, you know.
Yeah,
that's its own magic set.
When I was thinking about this, I was more thinking about, you know, the stuff that doesn't make sense that you do because this is how you always shuffle before events. This is how you always cut before events. So I'll go first for me. This voodoo has lasted like well over a year now, and I think it's gonna be kind of permanent.
Yeah.
I don't believe in double sleeves anymore.
Yeah?
No, the anime sleeves are cursed. Like, anime plus oversleeve is guaranteed cursed.
Cursed.
You're just
guaranteed.
never gonna get the good shuffles. You're never gonna get the good draws. I'm opaque, plain sleeve for life now, I think.
Yeah. You know the funny thing? I'm with you. I came to that conclusion independently. Probably like a month or two before the last year's Chicago Regional. And also, it's easier to just change out a single sleeve. There's like less things that can happen at Top Cut. In case like something happens to a sleeve, you know?
Yeah.
Like, you can just have like 3 packs of katanas on hand, but if you only bought like 1 or 2 packs of those artist sleeves 2 years ago, like, and you don't have spares,
yeah, and that's part of what discourages me from just playing the art sleeves like raw.
Yeah.
You know, I have tons of them.
I mean, that's definitely not gonna happen for me. Yeah.
Yeah, I have tons of sleeves that are sitting in boxes from when I believed.
Yeah.
And this is pure voodoo and confirmation bias. There's no logic in any of this, but that's just how I feel, man.
It's fake news.
And the other thing, here's the other thing.
This is how you feel.
Yeah. Here's the other thing that I will, and I'm gonna end up doing it later tonight. When I make my deck log, or whenever I do my deck list before the event,
yeah,
I never sort it.
You never sort it.
I go 1 card at a time from the top of the deck.
Yep.
It feels so cursed to sort the deck out into like a perfectly uniform setup and then try to reshuffle it into a random state. Feels like the first like 3 games always come out weird and scuffed.
Yeah.
So yeah, nah, that ain't me. If it happens in top 8, you know, because they do the deck check or whatever, then it is what it is. I can't do anything about that. But
you know, the funny thing is, whenever I was making the deck log, I was just making it strictly from memory while like sorting it out.
Yeah.
But like just clicking through it pretty quickly. I was like, wait, I need to double check that these cards are here and like in the deck.
Yeah, you definitely don't want to make your deck log from memory. Please don't do that. But it's just one of those things. It's like I don't want to separate the deck out. I don't want to sort the deck out. Like they're gonna make you do it if you make cut. But like, if I have a choice, I'm not gonna do it. So that's just. There's nothing logical about it. If you know how to shuffle correctly, you should be able to re-randomize the deck. Maybe I don't need to know how to shuffle correctly. Maybe
This habit of mine might be a little bit more based on like how I operate as a human being, but like I feel like I've always played at least marginally better Weiss after some kind of extended period of not playing it.
Oh yeah.
And it's just like, and like day before regional, not happy. I'm not playing a game. 2 days, maybe not anyway. Like,
that's interesting. That's really interesting.
Yeah, because in my head, and somebody else in our community had a slightly similar mindset of like, you know, playing the day/night before the regional just feels like cramming for a test.
Yeah.
And if you run that test hot, then you might just run the the next day cold. Now that's definitely voodoo, but for me, it's like I always I'm the kind of person that thrives on doing a variety of things like back to back. If I jam something in general, like too much all in a row, like it grinds on me.
I think there's something there. You know,
Yeah.
they'll tell you, you know, when you're doing test preparation or something like that, like for an exam, they'll always tell you, you know, don't, like, make sure you get rested. Make sure, like, you take enough time before, because, like, you're not gonna retain any of the shit you do the night before, the day before, the 5 seconds before. You know, that studying isn't useful. It's like, if you don't know
everything leading up to it.
Yeah, if you don't know it by then, you're not gonna.
Yeah.
But what I will say is that I have played card games for too long, and I have practiced too much the day before to ever give myself enough room to think I'm like, nah, I got this. There's no more plays that I can make that would ever improve by playing more games. I'm you know, my worry whenever I play the pre-tournament games is I have to take close stock of my mental state. The last thing you want is to tilt yourself
Before
the event.
Yeah.
So definitely don't play the day of.
No.
God, no.
No.
God, no.
Hell no.
Don't do it.
No.
If you get there 3 hours early, like, doom scroll for 3 hours, like, I don't know, but
yeah.
don't play Weiss.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
a mistake.
Yeah. Yeah, because the funniest thing so far for me is that I have very little, like, undefeated locals at this time. And, like, 2 of them happened right after I did not play Weiss for, like, 3+ days and, like, drove back. And, like, the most recent one was go to Houston, visit family, skip Weiss for 3 days, drive back directly into the local 4 hours in, and go undefeated. Smile.
Yeah, I mean, you were coming back from a fairly long layoff when you won that shop challenge, right?
Yeah, that's the other thing. Yeah, and that's the other one most recent, where it's like, went to Vietnam for a week, came back, day after, still fully jet lagged to hell and back, win the shop challenge. Easy.
It's just so easy.
I should just take a trip before each regional. Just not play.
Right. Do you have any
But yeah.
I kind of understand that. Do you have any, like, shuffling or
I shuffle
or cutting?
8 times.
Is it 8?
Except for when I don't. It's the weirdest thing. Like, sometimes I'll consciously remember and then I'll do it, and then sometimes I'll just keep shuffling, and then that's the feeling, and then there it goes.
I kind of want to.
Do you have a number?
You know, I read somewhere that if you shuffle too much, it unrandomizes the deck a little.
Yeah.
And so I have to be conscious to shuffle less. Or, like, because I'm one of those people, like a little bit of a compulsive shuffler.
Same. No, I'll shuffle my waiting room. I'm trying to stop, but like whenever it's like about to refresh, I'll like shuffle it. But the opponent's like still definitely going through a turn, and at one point they'll ask for it, and then you gotta get it back, and then you'll have to shuffle it again, and oh my god, how shuffled is it gonna be, you know?
Yeah, it's a bad habit that I think a lot of us have when playing casual games or more casual games, I'll say, where we start to shuffle the waiting room, you know, before it's time, and that will definitely cause you to shuffle the crap out of it. So, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah,
it's everybody's got little things that they like. I have a specific deck box that I will bring to tournaments only, big tournaments only. They gave out like a mini-sized Shioko deck box
Sick.
a while back.
Yeah. Nice.
That I generally bring to tournaments because it's just big enough to hold like one deck and some sleeves and like some spares.
Yeah.
And that's it.
Yep.
And so it's like little tiny box, just throw in the bag, real easy.
Yeah.
So feel free to comment whatever your pre-tournament voodoo is, whatever your your absolutely nonsensical beliefs are that you absolutely adhere to regardless of any circumstance. Everyone's got some. The more you play card games, the more you will realize the truth that we're all absolute lunatics, and there's no, much like any other sport, you're gonna have these rituals that you believe in. And
I'll tag on one more, and there will be a Spotify poll, and also you can leave it in the comics. Not a poll, there will be like a Spotify question and answer, and you can also leave it in the YouTube comments. And the last one I'll lead off with is for a long time, if I have 2 Shizus and a third guy, I'll swing with the Shizus first, because it was my sincerely held belief that the top was a climax, and I would trigger it with the third guy when I could have milled it with the Shizu, and now it's the first trigger that I hit, and which is full bullshit.
Yeah.
For sure. Because it can be the top, or it can be the third card after you swing with Shizu. It doesn't make sense. You should just swing with the shitter first, and then you'll know what to do with your salvages afterwards.
Yes, and I was about to say, one of our locals would absolutely admonish any of us for doing that, because you want to have the maximum amount of information possible prior to any combo decision.
Even if it's bad.
Even if it's bad. Especially if it's bad.
Especially if it's bad, really. So, yeah. That's some deprogramming that I've done on myself recently.
Some stuff is innocuous and it'll never hurt you. It's just weird.
Yeah.
I have known people who have wore the same shirts for every tournament.
Yeah.
When I used to play 05R, there were people who that was the tournament shirt. It was game time. You didn't wear it any other time, or they'll have some kind of food ritual or whatever, pre-game ritual, pre-night ritual.
Yep.
Making deck changes at the last possible minute was always happening, and so it's
that's a horrible habit, by the way.
Well, I know people.
Some people are powerful.
Some people are powerful.
But for us mere mortals, that's a horrible thing. And it's across all card games. It happens everywhere. At the Pittsburgh Pokemon Regional, you saw people on Twitter yeah, I changed my entire deck archetype 3 days before the regional. That made the difference. It was so good. I was like, you're leading us astray.
Yeah. Also, Decklog kind of puts a kibosh on that, where it's you gotta submit this shit beforehand. You cannot just be making changes right just now.
I mean, you could do it the morning of. You can still change it.
Yeah. Now with Bushi Navi.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Because before, when you were doing the pre-reg,
yeah,
they made you send it in.
Yeah,
you were locked in.
Yeah.
No fucking around.
Yeah. No, they actually did. If you went up to them,
yeah,
you could change it.
I wouldn't.
Yeah.
Not that there's anything wrong with the great judging staff for Bushiroad events, but I'm not relying on anybody's sincerity, unfortunately.
But that's gonna be our show for today, so tune in next time after your next deck out. And don't you forget to take the refresh point. Next time, we'll see you after Chicago, and for me, before New York.